All right, BJ. Well, the first thing I actually wanted to speak about before we go on to the NCAA tournament is the MAC. ESPN blessed me this year, and maybe they haven't in the past, but this year they just seem to show a ton of MAC games, and we've had some conversations about the MAC, and you've talked about the ability of the players and maybe how it doesn't get the same acknowledgement as other conferences in the country, but there were some really good games. Really good.
Yeah, there's no question. There were a handful of really good teams, and the conference was really competitive. You had Iona finished on top in the regular season,
Yep.
and then Manhattan. And then you had Quinnipiac and Canisius were two really strong teams. And so those top four teams can really, really play, and they were all, different styles of teams. Manhattan obviously is focused on the defensive side of the ball, and Iona is always trying to score 100 points with an up-tempo game. And then you got Quinnipiac, which was a really, really strong rebounding team. They had a couple of really good bigs that they played with in Drame and Azatam, and they played really well this year.
Yeah.
And Canisius probably had, all around the best player in the conference, and Billy Barron. And he's just incredible. So between Billy and then George Beeman at Manhattan, and guys like Sean Armand and David Lowry at Iona. There are a lot of really good players, and we'll have to see who gets. Hopefully, a couple of them will be invited to the Portsmouth Invitational Tournament and have a chance to get on the NBA radar this summer.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall it was a really, really fun year, and then it was a great tournament. I mean, Manhattan took care of Iona in a close game in the championship.
Yeah.
And was able to move on to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. It was. I watched every game. It was some disbelief at the tempo and the intensity, and not to say there aren't other conferences that play with a similar speed or anything like that, but these guys looked like they were playing to really prove to the nation that, hey, look, acknowledge us, respect us, we're here. And the competition against each other, because they've been going against each other for so many years.
There's no question, and I talk to people all the time, and I talk to kids a lot about this. When you look at, obviously, the talent level in the NBA is, these are the best 400 or 500 players in the world.
Yeah.
And, there are some exceptions. Look, there's some guys in the NBA that probably don't belong there, and there's a lot of guys that aren't in the NBA that probably do belong. But for the most part, it's the most talented, it's the best league in the world. But if you watch a regular season NBA game, it's not always that intense. They're not always guarding each other. You don't always see a hand in the face and on the perimeter. You don't always see these guys diving for loose balls and scrapping.
Yeah.
But when you watch a MAC game, or if you go to the Big East tournament or the A-10 tournament, and you see how hard these kids play every possession, it's incredible. And my feeling is that if you can be the best player on the floor and be productive in one of those tournament settings, that's usually going to translate to the NBA.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, and that's why I love going to college games. I love it. I'll continue to do it. Obviously, as part of my business, scouting the kids, but also just as a fan. If I can pick a game to go to, I'll go to a high-level college game any day over a regular season NBA game.
Right.
And the NBA picks it up in the playoffs. There's no question, but you're right, man. These kids try to kill each other, and but after it's over, it's handshake, and it's just the best about sports, I think.
Yeah, With a player like George Beeman, Sean Ahmad, and Billy Barron, do you think those guys are going to get some serious looks from the NBA?
I do. I mean, I think they've already gotten them. I mean, I know for a fact, talking to NBA people, that they're looking at these guys. I mean, Billy is just, I see a lot of Mark Price in him. I'm not saying he's Mark Price.
Yeah.
You know, Mark Price was an NBA All-Star. I'm just saying that the way this kid shoots the ball and, you know, his floor vision, I think he's going to be even better when he plays with other pros. You know, if he gets into NBA Summer League, I think his game will even elevate.
Yeah.
Sean Ahmad is one of the best pure shooters that I've ever seen. I mean, he's just, I mean, the way he shoots the ball and his mechanics, you know, and the rotation is just, and he has unlimited range. So there's always a need for specialists like that. And you know, he's improved his overall game. I mean, he's turned into a little bit more of a playmaker, and he's improved his defense. So, I mean, he's a real good player. And then George is a very unique player because he just has an uncanny ability to score the ball.
Yeah.
And I think George is a lot better defensively than people realize. I think that when he gets in front of NBA people, because of his length and his athleticism, he's going to turn some heads being able to guard the one position,
right?
Which is really a void in the NBA when you look at guys, the quick point guards now, like the Kemba Walkers and the you know, and the Brandon Jennings and these types of guys. It's very difficult to keep them out of the paint.
Yeah.
And there are very few teams that have guys that can guard the one position. So I think when people evaluate George, that's going to make him extremely valuable.
Yeah. And if the NBA don't want them, there's guaranteed some teams around the world that have an interest and they'll take them.
Yeah, no question. I mean, they've all had really, really great careers. And so obviously I think, you know, not speaking for the guys, but I assume that their goal and objective is to make the NBA at some point, with the understanding that if it doesn't happen right away, I'm sure all three of those guys will get really good offers from Europe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, leading into, you know, from there into the tournament, Manhattan had a tough draw that first round, and there was some familiarity there for Coach Masiello.
Yeah, there was, and it was a tough game, and I actually think they could have won it. I think obviously they were right there. I think that they, you know, they did get a bit unlucky because I think there were other teams that they perhaps could have drawn. Like, for example, had they drawn Cincinnati, I think Harvard drew Cincinnati in the first round as a 12 seed. I could have seen Manhattan in that spot, and frankly, I think Manhattan probably would have beat Cincinnati just like Harvard did.
Yeah.
But they ended up a 13, and Louisville probably shouldn't have been a 4. You know, Louisville is coming in one of the hottest teams in the country, and they have so much experience.
Yeah.
So, and they showed that. I mean, they showed that under 4 minutes. You know, Louisville made all the plays. Hancock hit a couple of big threes, and Russ Smith was living at the foul line. You know, Manhattan had a couple of bad turnovers and didn't really execute a couple of things. So, but that's, you know, that's comes with the territory. You're playing a team that's a defending national champs, that has probably 2 NBA players. I know Harrell is Montrezl Harrell is very high on the NBA radar, and Russ Smith is a guy who is also highly regarded. And so there was a reason why they were, you know, 18-point underdogs. But Manhattan played a great game, and they did the MAC proud, I think.
Yeah.
And now they look forward to next year.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with the tournament and other games that stand out, obviously we have Mercer and Duke game, which a lot of people were shocked by.
Well, you know, the thing with Duke, they and this may change next year because they have a big kid coming in, Jaleel Okafor, who's a big post presence.
Yeah.
But in the last 5-6 years, they've been very perimeter oriented.
Right.
And when you rely on the three, you can live by the three, die by the three, right? So, and that's been their big problem. So, I'm sure not a lot of people picked Mercer or knew a lot about Mercer and didn't pick them to beat Duke. But I'm not surprised when Duke gets picked off because of that. And we've talked about this in the past. I mean, basketball, you can try to reinvent the wheel, but your best bet is to have a balanced attack inside and outside.
Yeah.
Have the ability to throw the ball in the post. Shoot a higher field goal percentage. Have somebody that can be productive in the post, that can make plays from the post. And if you're going to get your threes, get them inside out with the floor balance.
Yep.
And that's not rocket science. They've been doing that 100 years.
Yep.
So. And I think you're going to see as we move forward to the Sweet 16, the teams that can do that will have a little bit of an advantage. Obviously, it helps to have really good guard play at that level. But like again, you look at a kid like the kid in Louisville, Harrell, and Kentucky also has a kid, Julius Randle. I know they're playing other either tonight or tomorrow.
Yep.
But kids like that can get in the post and score and make plays, that could be the difference.
Yeah. Are there any teams that are a surprise for the Sweet 16, or would you say everyone that's in there is definitely deserving?
As far as a surprise, right? Well, who are some of the lower seeds? I saw Dayton twice this year.
Okay.
In person, and I like them. I'm not surprised they beat Ohio State. I picked them to do that.
Okay.
And I believe they beat Syracuse. And, Syracuse also had some issues second half of the year.
Yeah.
But I would say I don't think a lot of people picked Dayton to be in the Sweet 16. They have a lot of depth. They have this kid V. Sanford that's a really, really talented player. He's an efficient scorer. And so, excuse me, I don't know that everybody saw them coming. Oregon, I don't know. I didn't watch Oregon a lot this year, to be fair, but I mean, man, they're playing really, really well right now. And I think they get Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken, this weekend. So that'll be a really good matchup. But yeah, other than a couple, three teams for the most part, I think most of the teams that are here, are to be expected. I was surprised, frankly. I thought Kansas would get their big guy back, and I thought maybe they could get through without him, and obviously they didn't. I think Kansas with their big, it was the best team in the tournament.
Right.
But unfortunately, injuries are a part of the game, and so Kansas is out.
Yeah. Actually, Oregon got taken down by Wisconsin, so they are playing Baylor.
Wisconsin gets Baylor.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. I messed that up. Yeah, and frankly, I don't know a whole lot about Baylor either. I didn't see them that much. I know they're always talented and loaded with, potential NBA guys. So that's never a surprise.
Yeah, Arizona, San Diego State.
San Diego State is continue to play well every year. I mean, Steve Fisher is winning a lot of games out there. I wouldn't even try to break it down for you. I mean, I've seen it a few times. I don't know San Diego State well enough.
Yeah.
I know that, Arizona has two kids, the big kid who's real athletic, and the guard, I think his name is Nick Johnson, who is also, I've spoken to some NBA people about him, and they're very high on him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, I wouldn't want to handicap it, but I would say that more times than not, the team that has more NBA potential are the ones that tend to come out on top. It's not always the case, as with Kansas. But probably more times than not.
Yeah. Well, there's always going to be those games where somebody comes in, they've got the right energy on that day, they manage to pick off one of the big teams, and they lose in the next round, but that kind of makes everything a little bit more exciting for everyone else for the next few rounds.
Yeah, no question. There's always a couple of Cinderellas there. Maybe Dayton. Maybe Dayton gets through to the Final Four. You never know.
Yeah. UCLA and Florida.
Florida plays a lot of close games, and you just sometimes when you do that, a ball bounces the wrong way, or you don't make a shot at the end, or UCLA is very tough. They're well coached. I love the kid Kyle Anderson. He's a New York kid. He's his numbers are just off the charts. I think he's the first player, and I may butcher the numbers, but I think he's like the first player in NCAA history with like 500 points, 300 rebounds, and 200 assists in one season.
Wow.
And if I didn't get that exactly correct, it's something close to that. Yeah, he's the first guy to do it. And he's just a great, point forward type of player.
Yeah.
So could UCLA pick him off? Sure they could. But listen, Florida has a great coach. They have a great system. They guard. So that should be a great game.
Right. We have Virginia and Michigan State.
Wow, Michigan State is, this kid Adrian Payne is just incredible. I mean, the game that he had the other day, I think he had like 40, 41 points in a tournament game. He didn't miss, and he's a kid that if I'm the NBA, I'm going to take a serious look at him in the lottery. Virginia is another team, with a good young coach, well coached. They guard. They're really good defensively. That's their thing. And so if they can somehow figure out how to stop Payne and keep Gary Harris and Keith Appling from Michigan State, if they can keep them out of the paint, then that should also be a great game. And frankly, I couldn't handicap it. I couldn't tell you who's going to win. My brackets were blown up a long time ago, so I wouldn't even attempt to do it.
Yeah, but that's good, right? If you write your bracket, you're confident, and then boom, first round.
Yeah, well, nobody had a perfect bracket, and nobody's going to win Warren Buffett's $1 billion, So, but you're right. That's what makes it fun. I mean, you can't. I mean, I had Dayton over Ohio State. I had a few of the games on the first day that were considered upsets based on the seeding. But to hit them all, I think I lost. The first game I lost was like St. Joe's, UConn.
Right.
And I had picked St. Joseph's, and I liked the way they played in the A-10 tournament, and I thought they could beat UConn. But to get it all right, I mean, it's really a flip of the coin. I mean, how do you call the Kentucky-Louisville game this weekend? I mean, that's going to be an amazing game, but I mean, it could go either way. And same thing with Michigan State, Virginia, like you mentioned, and UCLA, Florida. Yeah. So it's very difficult, I think, to handicap the games.
Yeah.
Vegas somehow gets these spreads right. I don't know how they do it, but these spreads incredibly are always, right on the final score.
Yeah.
So they know something, but that's not my business.
Yeah, they got some serious mathematicians at work there.
Yeah, no question.
Yeah. One more is Tennessee, Michigan.
Tennessee is very tough. That might be a tough situation for Michigan because Tennessee is big, they're strong, they're long, they're athletic, they're playing with great confidence. Quanzo Martin is a guy I remember watching him play in college, and he's a tough guy, and Tennessee is just playing tough. Michigan has a great coach. I mean, he is. We've talked in the past about coaching.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of parity, coaching can be the difference maker. And you look who's still here: Billy Donovan and Rick Pitino, and the usual suspects. And John Beilein at Michigan is one of those guys. I mean, and frankly, so is Bo Ryan at Wisconsin. I mean, those 4 guys I would put up there with anybody. But Beilein and Ryan in particular, because of how innovative they are in working matchups and having players that are versatile, having your bigs out on the perimeter and letting your guards play in the post.
Yeah.
These types of things, and I know Beilein's been doing that for years. Even when he was at West Virginia 20 years ago, he was innovating along these lines, and it's and so in certain situations it can make the difference. But I watch out for Tennessee because they're a hot team now. They played the play-in game. I believe they beat Iowa.
Yeah.
So they've won 3 games already, and each notch under your belt, you gain some confidence and you gain even more momentum. So that might be a tough spot for Michigan.
Yeah. And just to finish off, we have an NIT tournament going on, and that's at the Final Four stage as well.
You know what? I watched St. John's. I watched Robert Morris come in and absolutely dismantle St. John's at St. John's a week ago.
Yeah.
And frankly, I haven't seen a whole lot. I watched, bits and pieces of 1 or 2 other games, but this time of year, I'm so focused on recruiting kids that are, finishing their seasons.
Yep.
And obviously I'll watch tonight and this weekend I'll watch the NCAA. I thought just to revert back for a second, I thought the Kentucky Wichita State game was one of the best college basketball games I've seen in a long time.
Right.
It was just amazing, the level of play and the intensity like we talked about.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed that. But as far as the NIT, man, I haven't followed it, to be honest.
Right. And you just went back, and let's stay there. Wichita State, nobody can take away what they did to go undefeated for that season. It's always tough to keep going and get through the tournament. But, what they was it's a great achievement.
I think they got they got a raw deal because as well as they played, they had a really tough draw. I mean, Kentucky was a preseason number 1, okay?
Yeah.
So Kentucky didn't play like that all year, but we all know they have that type of talent. They always do. Calipari always has that NBA talent.
That's right.
So for Wichita State to draw them in the second round was really, really a tough draw for them. And Wichita State also, I mean, look, this kid, Anthony Early, he's a pro. And the way he played against Kentucky, he may be a late lottery pick. That's how well he played. The kid Baker and the point guard Van Vliet, these guys are going to be in NBA Summer League. I mean, they're going to be right there.
Yeah.
So, again, when you have NBA talent on your college team, it was a surprise, I think, anybody they got to the Final Four. You don't just go 34-0 by chance. They had I don't care who you're playing against. That is real. And maybe if they played anybody other than Kentucky that day, they'd be playing this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a tough draw, but they will definitely benefit from that in the future as well, because a lot of people who were considering going to other schools are now going to look at them and think, oh, you know what? That's going to be on my list.
There's no question. And a lot of these mid-majors have done great. You look at Wichita, you look at Gonzaga, that's good every year. I mean, you look at a team like Manhattan and what they did this year. It all helps in recruiting, and that's the one thing I would say, about the NIT, not having followed the games as closely. I did see a little of Minnesota the other night, but if you win the NIT, it really gives you a lot of momentum coming into the following year.
Yeah.
And And so, all of these postseason tournaments, I know teams put a lot of stock in them for recruiting and for the future.